any sense, any sensory input of the human body, because it's not objective, it's not accurate, it's not something you could calibrate. You don't have a number pad on your shoulder that has little numbers and digits. Oh, I feel this. Like, where are you basing your senses on? Anything qualitative? Certainly not quantitative, first of all. Second of all, if you remember from high school physics, the equation for centripetal acceleration is v squared over r. R is the radius of the spinning body, the sphere or circle. It works in either case, and v, which is the linear speed on the outer edge of whatever's rotating. V squared over r, if you actually calculate that in terms in SI units and compare it with the gravitational force of acceleration, the little g, 9.8 meters per second, and you do a ratio to see what fraction of a g is a result of due to centrifugal motion in the opposite direction due to the spin of the Earth, and it's something like 283 to 1. So it's almost 300 times smaller than this always present pervasive force of gravity. And here's the thing: even if that ratio were larger, we spend our entire lives in it, we wouldn't notice it. There would just be some modified g that we would call normal. It would be, I mean, you can't sense individual forces, two vector forces. You can only sense if you had the capability to sense the vector sum. So you'd only feel the sum of the gravity pulling you downward and the centrifugal force attempting to push you upwards or fling you off the surface. So it's just illogical and a senseless argument to say we don't feel motion. Well, of course you wouldn't. Why would you? I've wondered this for months as I've been on time and time again watching flat Earth debates. Why do you think you should feel motion, and why do you think that you're capable of feeling motion? I don't understand why that is even a thing. To be frank. What else was on the list? Let's see here. So
we'll start. We'll let him respond to that, and then we'll come back to the answers. Mm-hmm. Okay, plain truth.
Let me just ask you to reiterate. I was trying to write down what you were saying and listen at the same time. You said something about the universe not caring whether. Can you restate that again real quick, please?
I was saying, the universe doesn't care if the laws of physics are easy or make sense. If you've ever taken nonlinear differential equations or quantum mechanics or electrodynamics, these are difficult differential equations, the solutions of which you seek are exceedingly challenging to obtain. There are a number of tricks that you can implement to solve them. And it was just a little cheeky sort of statement that you'll hear college professors say. The universe doesn't care if the equations are hard to solve. That's just the way nature is. So I forget the context in which I stated it.
All right, that's fine. I guess my response to your incredulity about our being able to sense motion is to be incredulous myself and think, why would you not think we were able to sense motion? So if we are talking about something that I think is real, which is centrifugal force, I can feel that. I can feel inertial force. I can feel that. I can sense that. So am I missing something in terms of what you're saying about why I would think that I could sense motion?
Well, in the sense that first of all, sure, you could sense inertial forces. If I subject you to an inertial force and ask you to tell me what the number, what exactly was the magnitude of that force, using an actual number, and how many sig figs and how many decimal points would you be able to answer, assuming that I know out to 100% accuracy what force I'm actually preparing in advance to apply to you. and then say, okay, please tell me what force I just applied to you. Could you do that?
If you touched my face, I could feel that. If you touched my shoulder, I could feel. I'm not sure. Again, this seems to me to move outside of simplicity and bring in the metaphysical, theoretical mathematics of your field. So, if you're going to ask me how much pressure you're putting on me by poking me in the shoulder or slugging me in the gut and asking me how much force was that, well, sure, I'm not going to be able to give you a specific number, but I am not also going to be able to talk to you for a few minutes while I catch my breath, because I certainly felt the punch to the gut. So when you say something like, I don't know how you can say we should feel motion, we have now qualified that to a certain extent to where, okay, we're actually not talking about the simplicity of feeling motion in and of itself. We're talking about quantitative and qualitative issues that need to be numerically represented. And that's not my argument.
Sure. What I was getting at, it all hinges back to the originator of all this, is the whether or not we should be able to feel motion. I stipulate that the Earth is a globe that's spinning and revolving around the sun. You say it's completely motionless and flat. Both scenarios would have the same sensations, because I'm saying not only can you not sufficiently reliably or quantitatively measure just by feeling with your senses what you're moving at, the fact of the matter remains that you can only feel accelerations. You can only feel changes in speed, sudden, like that. That's how flight simulators work. Like in museums and amusement parks, when you have like a virtual reality, like you're on a roller coaster in a spaceship. Have you seen these? And they just feed you visual information that looks like you're going up and down and around, and then all they have to do is like jolt it and then move it up and down, and then your brain fills in the gaps. You can actually have physical responses like that tickle in your stomach you get when you go over a hill really fast in a car, and like for real, or on a roller coaster. So what they're doing, the engineers realize the way that psychology works and sensory input is processed in the brain, especially when it's paired with your vision. That's the key to this, because you look out and you don't see anything spinning because you're spinning with it. So that's the other half of the equation we haven't got to yet. But suffice it to say that these engineers of these virtual reality rides exploit the fact that you only feel minor jolts and changes in your angle with respect to the ambient gravitational field, and sudden jolt. You're feeling acceleration. Your body fills in the gap and serves up to your consciousness this narrative that you're on a spaceship or a roller coaster, or whatever the ride may be.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've come across too in my interactions with friends regarding this discussion. And the explanation that we would not be able to feel something except for the change in acceleration. My lack of experience and my statement to you would be, you would need to prove that. You would need to demonstrate that, because I have not been in a situation where I have not known that I'm moving. So, for instance, I had a discussion with a friend who's very adept at being able to discuss physics and all of these issues, and he brought up these points that you're making, and my point was, I've never been in that situation. So when you say to me, well, you wouldn't be able to feel it, I would have to say, I've never been in that situation. I've never been in a situation, except for right now, if I'm sitting still. I'm not moving right now. My body's not moving. I'm going to sit still for 2 seconds. Okay, I'm not moving. Now, if I were moving, I would know it.
How?
So when you say...
How would you... I'm sorry to interrupt. How would you know that you're moving?
Well, contrary to you, I trust my senses.
Okay.
So
Have
right
you ever been
now,
on a train?
but in that situation, I was not applying your statement of you can't feel that you're moving right now. You can't sense that you're moving right now. So yes, I have been on a train, I have been on a plane, I have been on an automobile, right? But in those moments at that time, I was not processing the information according to the discussion that we're having right now. So I can't go back and tell you I was analyzing the situation and I didn't know that I was moving. So when you say, have you ever been on a train? I don't believe that's an adequate application of the discussion because right now I'm not on a train. So I can't experience or not experience the scenario that you're painting for me. I understand
Well,
exactly
I
what you're
had.
saying, and it makes
I had meant to elaborate on, but I didn't want to interrupt for too long, so I just said, "Have you ever been on a train?" But I had a little brief little anecdote from which time when I was on a train. I remember very vividly because it was exceedingly disorienting because my brain was receiving conflicting sensory input for my immediate environment. You see, I was sitting on the train. We were not moving. I knew that for a fact. There were still people being loaded on. We weren't going to depart for another few minutes. I was tired. I sort of slouched back in my seat, and I was like on the left side of the train where there was actually another train directly adjacent to us, like maybe 3 feet away. And I'm kind of high up, and I'm not like looking. I don't have my face pushed up against the glass, so I didn't even see the ground. All I could see is this big looming train, and then everything around me. The shades were pulled shut on the right side, so it was just me, the cabin, and then this train like 3 feet outside my window. People are still getting on. We're not moving, and then all of a sudden I look over, and the train to the left of us starts moving back. And I was like, okay, so they're going now. And then all of a sudden I look down at the ground and it's moving the wrong direction. I'm like, whoa! And I was sitting down. I got like dizzy and I was like thrown off kilter because my brain was telling me I'm not moving because I couldn't feel this. We were on, they have this very soft, like air suspension, it's a very smooth ride, and especially when you're not going that fast yet. And we were going probably 3 or 4 or 5 miles an hour. And then my visual input was telling me that the other train was moving back and I was still motionless. So if I relied only on my feelings of motion, I would have been wrong, now wouldn't I? I'm trying to explain that there's a fallibility in this qualitative, like, human perception. There are animals in the animal kingdom that have like thousands of times more sensitive senses. You name a sense, and there's an animal that has it better by 1,000 or 10,000. And so we're quite feeble, clumsy creatures. So you'd be wise to not rely entirely on your senses. That's just what I'm saying. Don't rely entirely and exclusively on them, and especially not as a starting point for an investigation into something as important as the shape of the Earth, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, I would disagree. I think that we should begin with and we should accentuate our senses as much as possible. That's where we can begin, and that's what we should establish our ability to interpret our environment. So again, I would just take odds with that, that position that you're putting forth in terms of not putting as much weight on our senses as we might be calling for in this discussion. This, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you wanted to go ahead and state your second point, we can tackle that and we can come to a better sort of understanding there.
Who's you? Me?
Yeah. Your second
what
point of evidence.
So the first point would be motion. The second point would be no curvature. Is that what you want me to do, Kyle?
Yeah, curvature. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So again, if I am going to address the heliocentric model, the heliocentric model is the model that puts forth the proposition that there is curvature. And I would venture to guess that all of us were told in middle school that the reason why we can't see